Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us again for Food for Thought. My name is Sunil Chandy. I am the rector and priest here at Christ Episcopal Church, and this is a ministry out of Christ Episcopal Church. And today I am speaking from my office again, and it's a different angle. It's not the white wall. It's actually I'm seated. So anyway, regardless, I'm here, and we're here as a ministry to connect with you, especially during this a challenging time of the COVID crisis, and usually on this particular Monday we have or this particular time we have our bi-weekly conversation with Sharon Younkin, and Sharon is here with us today. Sharon, please come on board.
Father Sunil.
I love the clap on the namaste. I love it.
Maybe we should have a little dancing intro.
We should have a dancing. I love, you know what? Every time that Ben puts on that music, the jingle that we have, I love it. I get moving. It makes me
know.
It inspires me.
It inspires me too. I think I will have that song burned into my brain for the rest of my life.
I know. We should do something, and we should switch it up a little bit, though. Every now and then, we'll get Ben to do something.
Yes,
like that, you know.
Well, so I'll tell you what's on my mind right now. Well, I finished. So self-compassion. I talked a little bit about it before. I touched very briefly upon it, but I feel as though I have a much deeper understanding of it now that I've just finished an 8-week group that I facilitated at RICBT, using Kristen Neff's workbook, and as well as other things, incorporating some other things in there as well, psychological concepts and whatnot. But so I think I wanted to just talk briefly about this whole idea of moving from self-criticism to self-compassion. And I'm realizing this is an epidemic, self-criticism. According to the research, 78% of us are compassionate toward others, but not ourselves. And I'm going to explain in a minute about the physiology and why that's a problem. But it was fascinating for me to be in a group, facilitating a group, and to recognize that without exception, all of us were very, very hard on ourselves and very critical. And I think that this is something that is really just so essential and so important to talk about during this pandemic, because we're facing the fall again. And I know that parents in particular, my heart goes out to people who have children who cannot be vaccinated. They're under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress going back into the school year. It's kind of like a Herculean task to do everything that they're managing. And I do not want them to, when they feel overwhelmed, to turn towards self-criticism, but more toward self-compassion, because I think it's going to help. You know, of course, I would also say, reach out, ask for help. If you have questions about how to navigate things with the pandemic, with your children, contact your doctors. They can answer any of your questions. Reach out to teachers for support. Reach out to family members, ask for help, because what you all are doing is really quite daunting, and I definitely have so much respect for all of you. I hear a lot about the challenges in my office. So self-compassion, let's talk about this self-criticism piece that I think is so fascinating. We know, so I think of it like when we use self-compassion, you are upgrading your brain, the software in your brain. The software in our brain, we have a very primitive part of our brain that goes to a place that's called the fight or flight response when we are in a life or death situation. And this primitive part of our brain has helped to protect us over the centuries when we've had to find food, when we've had to find shelter, when we've had to survive, to fight to survive, literally. And so this primitive part of our brain has helped us to do these tasks, these functions to help us to survive. Well, the problem is is that now, in a relatively short period of time, we're living in a modern world where we don't have those same threats. And the threats now are different. The threats are threats to our self-worth, our self-esteem. We make a mistake. We are rejected. We do something that affects our self-worth. And what happens is this primitive, we feel threatened because we feel nervous, we feel scared because maybe we made a mistake or we failed somehow. So the primitive response, this fight or flight response, is about fighting or running or freezing. And so if I make the mistake, my brain is going to see me as the problem. I need to attack you. And that's where the criticism piece comes into play.
Ah.
The criticism, that part of the brain it's trying to help from maybe a place of fear or, you need to change, you need to do better, you can't mess up again. It's kind of criticizing me harshly to get me to not make that same mistake again. But the problem is when that part of the brain is attacking me essentially for these modern day problems that are not life or death situations, it can make me lose motivation. I can start to feel depressed. I mean, if I were to talk to a good friend or talk to you, Father Snail, the way, with that same critical voice, you wouldn't want to be around me, right? And yet we do that to ourselves all the time, which makes us then vulnerable to depression and not having motivation, ironically. But it's hard for us to let go of this idea, this outdated belief that somehow, yeah, I got to crack the whip. I got to now really be hard on myself. I got to come down on myself when I make a mistake. Versus when we respond with self-compassion, we are in another part of our brain where the care system is activated. Oxytocin is released, which relaxes us. We are able to think more openly, more creatively. We're able to see things in a more well-rounded way, a better perspective. And the research shows, we have 1,000 studies now that show when we respond with self-compassion, we're much less likely to get depressed, to get anxious. We navigate trauma better. There are just a whole host of things. We have better relationships. In fact, we now have, there's a recent study where with combat veterans who had seen the same amount of combat in two different groups. One group they taught the skill of self-compassion to, and the other they did not. And the ones who learned self-compassion were significantly less likely to develop post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
So this is not some kind of new agey kind of just do something that feels good because it sounds right. This is actually something, there's hard science to back. This is a more, you are modernizing your reaction. You are upgrading, how you respond to these different situations in life is how I view it.
Well, it's interesting you say that it's not new agey, of course, and part of like this spiritual push from many of the religions of the world is towards self-compassion. It's compassion and self. I mean, you think about what Jesus tells us: love God with all your heart. The two greatest commandments is love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. So what that means is call to love your neighbor. You're called to love God, but your neighbor you're supposed to love as much as you love yourself. That means you have to love yourself.
Right.
Be compassionate to yourself, just like you'd be compassionate to your neighbor.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is part of the wisdom of the ages that come out through religion.
Exactly.
Over the centuries.
Exactly. It's an age-old practice that now we have the science to back.
Yeah. And it's interesting that we talk about the fight or flight versus the self-compassion. I love that neurobiology. Whenever you talk that way, you got me. So the thing with that is, like, if you think about it, fight, flight, as I understand it, you're in a dangerous situation. You have to act, and you're not thinking, you're not processing, you're just acting, running on instinct. Whereas if you are calm, if you breathe and you allow oxytocin to do its work rather than norepinephrine or epinephrine, right? Then what all of a sudden you're at the stage where you could start to use higher levels of your brain, the cerebral cortex, to think through what are possibilities. And
You're
that's,
talking my language, Father
I love
Sunil.
it.
I'm feeling like we're on the same wavelength right now. Totally.
I know. I mean, this is what, I mean, this is the beauty of God's great creation. I mean,
Yes.
God has given us these abilities to immediately pull us out of danger. But when we're not in a dangerous situation and we think we might be, there are
Right.
also ways to calm ourselves down, to help us to think.
So
And
you want to know the number one reason why people kind of balk at using self-compassion? They're afraid, according to the research, it will affect their motivation. They're afraid that somehow they will just, just let everything, fall back on easy street. Just like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. Okay. I'm just going to be compassionate with myself and just give up. I don't have to try anymore. And that I want to dispel that, because self-compassion is not about necessarily going easy on yourself, meaning it's about being compassionate with yourself and also having expectations for yourself. It's not about just throwing in the towel and giving up. I want to read you one example that I found really powerful from this workbook. So what if the mother wants to motivate her child to make necessary changes? Let's say her teenage son comes home from school with a failing math grade. She has choices for how to help him improve. One way is with harsh criticism. I'm ashamed of you. You're a loser. You'll never amount to anything. And that's how we talk to ourselves, right? Makes you cringe. Perhaps temporarily the boy will work harder for a while to escape his mother's wrath, but in the long term, he'll no doubt lose confidence in his ability to do math and become afraid of failure, and he won't sign up for advanced math courses anytime soon. So here's the second part. There's another way a mother can motivate her son to help him bounce back from failure and succeed, by giving him compassion. For example, oh dear, you must be so upset. Come here, let me give you a hug. You know I love you no matter what. That tells her son that he's acceptable even when he fails. But a compassionate mother doesn't stop there. If she truly cares about her son's well-being, there's an action component. She's likely to add something like, I know you want to go to college, and of course you need to do well on your entrance exams to get in. What can I do to help you? I know you can do it if you work hard enough. I believe in you.
yeah, yeah. You know what, Sharon, I have those same conversations with my son all the time, but it's interesting to have that mind shift that you can actually have those same conversations with yourself.
Yes.
I mean, and influence the self-talk that we have.
Right. And you're reminding me of the three components of self-compassion, the skill. One is to be mindful that you are suffering, so to allow for your feelings in the moment when you have a tough situation. The second is to remember common humanity, that you're not alone. Suffering is part of life. Even if your type of suffering seems like it's very, very different, we still have suffering. As in all of our journeys, we've had suffering. That's just part of the human condition. And the third component is self-talk, talking nicely to yourself the way you would a good friend, because we know, and also with doing self-compassionate touch, we know from the research, two things activate oxytocin, the release of oxytocin: touch and vocalization, gentle vocalization. So think of a cat. When a cat is caring for its kittens, it licks the kittens, so that's touch, and it purrs. So think of yourself. It's like you are giving yourself, you're activating the oxytocin and the care system when you put your hands over your heart, or hand over hand, or hand on your cheek, whatever form of touch you find soothing. And you talk to yourself the way you would a good friend.
Yeah. I love when you said that, I almost purred.
Right? I know. But
You
the
know,
purring really is soothing, it is.
I know. You know, I might have to try that.
Hey, you may have thought of another component to self-compassion, which is purring and soothing touch.
Yeah, that's
You know,
right.
that would work too. I do wanna show one more thing before we end for today, and that's been I had a link I attached. So Kristen Neff, who's the pioneer, she and actually um, Christopher Germer was recently interviewed, by Anderson Cooper about their work on self-compassion, so you can even Google that on his, show. He does, like, a 15-minute interview, I think, of different folks doing, things that he finds interesting. But I'm wondering, Ben, if you could open the link that I sent, about self-compassion, if you see that there. But so if not, what we can do, if you go to Kristen oh, here we go. Thank you, Ben. This is so you see there's Kristen Neff, and if you go to her website, Kristen Neff, Krist, I think it's IN, and Neff, Neff, and you just type Kristen Neff website, you'll go to her website, and she has a list of guided practices here. So you can try some of them. There's one at the bottom called Self-Compassion Break, which I really like. It's 5 minutes, and, it takes you through, being mindful, recognizing common humanity, and how to talk to yourself nicely if you have a situation that you're struggling with. Um, there are Tender Self-Compassion, that's a nice one. There's one for self-compassion for caregivers. Uh, Affectionate breathing, that's a very nice breathing meditation exercise. It's very relaxing. The loving kindness meditation, that's also a beautiful one, um, where we part of the work that you do is to develop, loving kindness phrases. And one of the real powerful, very powerful exercises that we did in the group was to have folks ask themselves, "What do I need?" And that's something we often don't do when we are in moments of distress. We're always thinking about what does everyone else need instead of what do I need? And taking that step and asking yourself, what do I need? And in this particular exercise, I had folks ask, what do I need to hear from other people as well? What do I need to hear from others? And by doing that, Kristen Neff set up this exercise so that then you recognize what it is you're hoping to hear from others, which really in turn is what you really need to tell yourself. If you need to hear from others, I love you, we really need to do is tell ourselves, I might need to tell myself, may I know that I am loved, right? And it was very powerful. It's a very powerful exercise. So I think, yes, thank you, Ben. I think that
No, I think
that's what I have to say about self-compassion for today. I will also say one other thing. I do have a group starting up again, my next round in the beginning of October. So you can call RICBT if you're interested. And I now can work with clients in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts.
great, good.
So,
And you could also you continue to do the in person or by Zoom, I would think.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. This group will be by Zoom this fall, and I did do most of my group in the summer in person, but then when things started to heat up a little bit, we changed over. But yes, it will be in Zoom over the fall. Yeah.
sure. That sounds good. One of the things I was thinking about in terms of self-compassion, especially around the biblical point of view from that, I think of Jesus coming in and coming into, after his baptism, coming into the community. And he's going to all these people who are marginalized, all these people who are left out, you know, prostitutes, tax collectors, people who've made mistakes. And his parables all talk about, the people who are the prodigals, the people who have been lost and left out. And what he does is he he normalizes that people make mistakes. And then he says, there is an opportunity for second chances. There's an opportunity for grace to know that you are not the sum total of all the mistakes you made, but rather you are beloved because of who you are in God. God created you for a particular purpose and hope and joy. And then when those people understand that, there's the opportunity for transformation. And so the opportunity to find oneself again and to reorient oneself with a positive, hopeful, joyful point of view in the world. And I think that same message goes for each one of us. We live in a world that idolizes perfection.
Yes.
We live in a world where images that come out on Instagram and social media are often only the ones that are photoshopped and beautiful and wonderful, right? And then we compare ourselves to those images, and those images, we forget, are not really real, but they're illusions.
Right.
They don't show who the person is in their authentic state. And
Yes.
And so when we have these false images to measure ourselves up to, of course we're going to fail, right? Of course we're going to, and then it leads us down this path that we're not worth it. But the message of the gospel, the message I think of psychology, I think, is to just help us remember that there are always second chances. We're not the sum total of our mistakes. We're beloved because of who we are, not what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I thank you, Sharon, for always reminding us of this and reminding us of the deep wisdom that's out there in the world. God bless you.
You as well, Father Sunil. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, folks, for watching again. And I hope that this session has also been helpful to you. It's always helpful speaking with Sharon and all the wonderful guests that we have that come on Food for Thought. They give us wisdom as we handle the different challenging situations we have in life. And of course, we are, as our time is ending, this is our time to end with our own prayer and for our own challenging situation, the COVID-19 situation. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Jesus Christ, you traveled through towns and villages, curing every disease and illness. At your command, the sick are made well. Come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they regain their strength and health through quality medical care. Heal us from our fear, which prevents nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Be present with those in authority who are making hard decisions. Support the medical professionals, emergency responders, counselors, and caregivers. We ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen. Join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Friends, go in peace to love and serve God. Go in peace and to know that you are beloved of God. Go in peace to know that you are worthwhile and beautiful just the way you are. And spread that message to the world around us, because the world needs it right now.
Thanks for watching. Did you know that you can join Christ Church from anywhere in the world? If you're feeling connected to what we're doing, email us today at communicate@christchurchwesterly.org.